Welcome back to the All Ball Podcast, where it's all ball all the time. You are here with your host, Sean and Isaiah, as usual. This is episode number 39, and today we're going to be talking about the second round of the NBA playoffs and our reactions from the first round. But first, as always, Isaiah, how are you feeling today, man?
First, I want to say that I'm upset, and it's with the way the NBA schedules games, because consistently the Celtics games have been earlier in the day than every other game that happens on the same day. And I don't like that, because you're supposed to put the primetime games, the real high class, crazy competitive games later so more people are watching. But no, they said just forget the team that was the number one. I think they were number one offense and defense since December or something. They just said forget that. Who wants to watch their games? Yeah, they had one of the most interesting first round series, probably the most interesting first round series. But who wants to watch their games?
Yeah, I have
Ridiculous.
I have a problem with the NBA not being able to schedule a Game 7, if you know what I mean. Because no series wanted to go 7 games. It's. I was expecting at least one 7-game series in the first round.
Mm-hmm.
I think that'd be a good way to start our first topic of the Timberwolves.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just gonna go off and say, Anthony Edwards, please stop ISOing if you're not going to pass the ball. I know I said this, a while back, maybe like 3 months ago. I said I'd like to see Anthony Edwards ISO more to get his own shot and create his own shot. I didn't mean I want you to ISO till the clock's at about 4 seconds and jack up some of the worst shots I've seen. That's not what I meant.
Yeah, you see, and that's something that I wanted to bring up about that series. It's the fact that, honestly, that series truly disappointed me, and it's not even the fact that it didn't go 7 games. It's the fact that despite how close the series was, it just genuinely was not a good series to watch, because it was only close because both teams played some of the worst playoff basketball I've ever seen. The amount of times that I saw missed right at the rim layups that aren't contested, the amount of ridiculous fouls, Ja missing almost as many free throws as Nicholas Claxton, just oh, it was really embarrassing from both teams. And I'm really glad that series is just over. I didn't even care who won at that point. I just wanted it to end.
Yeah, the ridiculous fouls. I mean, Jaren Jackson could not stay on the court more than 20 minutes with those fouls.
Exactly.
Same thing with
him
Cat.
and Cat.
Yeah, at the beginning of the series.
Don't know how to stop fouling people.
Finally, I think it was game 6 when Jaren finally hit over like 30 minutes in a game.
Sheesh.
And D'Lo, man, I don't know. D'Lo was playing like he was what do you call it? He forgot how to play basketball.
Man, D'Lo, he really tricked us in 2018. He said, "Yeah, I'm gonna come out and I'm gonna have a great all-star season. I'm not gonna say great, but a really good all-star season." And then just has not lived up to that potential since.
No, Nets D'Lo was just something different.
Exactly. Something about that system really just brought out the best in him, and he hasn't been the same.
Another person to speak out about was McDaniels. He had a great game in game 6, but his teammates couldn't help him. They even held Ja Morant for the most part to very low scoring.
Honestly, Ja held Ja to very low scoring because he just missed a lot of shots that he normally makes.
Mm-hmm.
And then also his 3-point shooting was just it was ungodly. It was I couldn't believe that somebody could shoot threes that poorly.
When you said ungodly, the little soundbite of the "Oh great heavens" came into every time he jacked up a shot. Oh great heavens!
Clanks off the side of the
Yeah,
rim.
yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Uh, I want to go back to D'Lo real quick
Okay.
because he played so bad that Jordan McLaughlin closed out the game instead of him the whole fourth quarter, and that's just showing how bad that he was playing throughout the whole series.
Yeah, I don't know what it is, man. It's weird because he somehow became a defensive leader this season,
Mm-hmm.
but his offense was just so inconsistent, and it really makes you question how. I never thought that I'd see the day that D'Lo would contribute more on defense than on offense. That sounds like an alternate reality right there.
Mm-hmm. Pat Beverly, you just got to stop talking trash, man. Every time you talk trash, you just end up losing.
Same thing with Cad. Always, oh, we in Minnesota now. Man, shut up. This is why y'all keep losing. And then he like celebrated by shushing the crowd or something one
Nah,
time, and then they came back like, "What are you doing?"
nah, nah. He didn't say we in Minnesota. He said, we in Minnesota now." Yeah, yeah. But for the Grizzly side, I mean, I think they made a really smart move. I think it was earlier in the series when they basically didn't even play Steven Adams no more.
Oh yeah, yeah. They just stopped playing him.
Mm-hmm. Desmond Bain, for the most part, I think Desmond Bain was really good. He had, I think, maybe like one game where it was
Yeah,
a
where he's
little
kind of
shaky.
off, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, for the most part, he definitely had a good series.
Mm-hmm. So my question to you is, do you think the Grizzlies can compete with the Warriors or vice versa? Who do you think has the upper hand going into that series?
I'm gonna come out and say it now. If the Grizzlies play like they played against the Timberwolves, they're getting swept. They are going to have to step their game up if they're going to challenge the Warriors.
Mm-hmm.
Because there is simply no way that they're getting away with it. We saw how the Warriors absolutely dismantled the Nuggets for 3 straight games before finally losing one.
Mm-hmm.
So the Grizzlies are gonna need to play a lot better.
Yeah, I definitely think so too. Like you said, Jaren has to stay out of foul trouble.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if he's playing against, I mean, I'm guessing if he's going to play center, do you think Adams going to start?
I think if the Warriors put in Looney as a starter, then they'll start Adams. But otherwise, then they're probably going to just start Jackson.
Yeah, because the only thing is with the Warriors starting Looney, they only play him like 8 minutes, and then he's off. Like he's off the court most of the game. His job is
there to get
literally
the jump ball, and that's it.
he's literally only there to start, and that's it. That's all you do is start. So let's say he is playing that small ball center or like that power forward, and he's going against Draymond. I mean, Draymond's smart enough to go at him to get, to make him foul. That's what he really has to watch out for.
Even Steph will go at him and get the fouls. Both of them know how to target certain players.
Mm-hmm. And I think they really have to make Jordan Poole struggle because Jordan Poole can't have another series like that. If not, like you said, they're going to get swept.
Yeah, letting Jordan Poole become the third splash brother on you is unacceptable. We can give the Nuggets a pass because they weren't a fully healthy team. So honestly, the Warriors had to do a lot less work on defense than they normally do.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, if if that happens against the Grizzlies, that's very concerning.
Mm-hmm. And before we go too far into actual second round predictions, I want to go back real quick to the Timberwolves and ask you, what do you think their outlook is for next season?
I don't know. Unless they make some crazy off-season move that nobody could predict, I see them plateauing right here as
Mm-hmm.
a first round exit at best.
Mm-hmm. And a grade for this season for them.
I guess I'll give them a B plus. You know, they finally broke that missing the playoff streak that they started to rebuild after Jimmy left.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's good to see them get a real, I don't want to say homegrown since they got D'Lo, but a more well balanced playoff appearances, I should say, because that initial one was more so just Jimmy Butler putting trash and cat on his back.
Trash. Yeah, I think that's a fair analysis. I like you said, unless maybe like Anthony Edwards takes a huge step next year,
Mm-hmm.
or D'Lo is more consistent, maybe they have a better chance of exiting the first round and moving on to the second. But
Mm-hmm.
I mean, who really wants to sign in Minnesota? Minnesota is like that, is
Yeah.
one of those small market teams. So
Yeah. You don't even need to elaborate there. It's
yeah.
Minnesota. That's it.
All right, so I think we can go ahead and move on to another series unless you have anything else to add on to that one.
Nope. I said my piece about how horrible it was, and that's all I needed to say.
All right. Was there any first round series that you really wanted to talk about that's I guess you could say that was really interesting?
Well, I don't want to necessarily talk about this series since we already pretty much talked about it,
Mm-hmm.
but I did see a post and it makes me beg an interesting question here.
Mm-hmm.
Paul Pierce, of all people, we know how notorious he is for ridiculous takes.
Uh-huh.
He says that he believes that Jason Tatum might be surpassing Kevin Durant right before our eyes. So let's talk about that.
Okay.
Let's address that. So how do you feel about that take?
Look, I know Kevin Durant got swept, but man, that's disrespectful. Just to compare Jason Tatum, what he's only done in what, maybe like 4 years,
Mm-hmm.
to Kevin Durant's lifetime. Yes, Kevin Durant has only won championships when he was with Steph, Clay, and Draymond, and really hasn't done too much else outside of like winning wise, when he's on his own or has another teammate. But to compare Jason Tatum to Kevin Durant is by far still, even with his playoff performance, the best scorer in the NBA.
Mm-hmm.
And to compare what Jason Tatum has done, yes, like I said, 4 years, but I'm guessing a lot of this is what Paul Pierce is seeing in one series.
Yeah.
It's kind of unbelievable. Like it goes along with that Paul Pierce like narrative of what he does,
Mm-hmm.
but it's still unbelievable.
Yeah, and I wanted to really bring up a good point of why this is so extremely ridiculous. So, in this series, Kevin Durant only had a bad offensive series, really kind of defensive, but mostly a bad offensive series because the Celtics defense was just that great.
Mm-hmm.
Now, as somebody who watched all 4 games of the series, it's very clear that Jason Tatum is nowhere near Kevin Durant's level for the simple fact that I believe there were 2 games where Jason Tatum was just straight up inefficient, not hitting shots. And it wasn't because of the Nets defense. He was just bad.
Mm-hmm.
And so that is the thing that makes me just question what ridiculousness is Paul Pierce even. I don't know, man. Paul Pierce, he's always been crazy, but this is a new level because there's no way that he watched the same series that we did This man is watching on an alternate dimensional television, getting 4K HD streaming from Universe 37 or something, bro, because Jason Tatum is nowhere near Kevin Durant's level. The only thing that he has over KD is defense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's not like Jason Tatum was scoring 50 every game. And like you said, that Celtics team was playing great defense. And the whole Nets team, I mean, besides Bruce Brown for like 2 games, was struggling for the most part.
And really, Bruce Brown was only not struggling because the Celtics were handing him shots.
Yeah, because I mean they had a great game plan of smothering Durant
Mm-hmm.
and Kyrie. I mean Kyrie was just kind of
Yeah.
bad even on his own self,
Yeah.
but um, I don't think you can really take one sample size of 4 games from a playoff series and look at what Kevin Durant's done throughout his lifetime and even this season and say that he's being passed by Jason Tatum. I don't think that's
Exactly.
fair.
Even just in this series, you can't say that because Jason Tatum did not play significantly better than Kevin Durant when you look at the circumstances. Jason Tatum, obviously, like I said, better defender. There's no debate there.
Mm-hmm.
But on the offensive end, KD, we saw him struggle for the first 2 games. Third game, he kind of started to get back to himself. And then by game 4, he was just playing like his normal self again for the most part. Whereas
Mm-hmm.
Jason Tatum had a solid 2, maybe 3 games where he legitimately just didn't look like he knowed how to get a bucket properly.
Mm-hmm. And you might really have to think of it this way too. It might just be the Celtics bias because of Paul. Paul Pierce obviously played for Celtics,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
It really could come down to that too.
And yeah, while I definitely believe that that's a huge part of it, I feel like there comes a certain point where the bias for your legacy team shouldn't outweigh reality.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm not going around saying the Rockets are winning a chip this year because they're my favorite team.
Exactly.
I understand what reality is that we're more than likely going to be a bottom 3 seed in the West again, but you know, you just accept it.
Yeah, like there's a certain threshold where you pass optimism and jump into delusion. And the delusion is exactly where Paul Pierce is right now.
Mm. Paul Pierce thinks he has the reality stone right now. He thinks he can make reality whatever he thinks it is. Um, but yeah, that's really what I think of that. It's really disrespectful to Kevin Durant.
Absolutely.
Um, so I'm guessing you really didn't want to talk about any of the first round series. So do you want to just go ahead and talk about our predictions for the second round series?
Yeah, let's move into it.
All right, which one do you want to go ahead and start off with?
Let's start off with the one that I think is the simplest to predict. I think the Miami Philly series should
Mm-hmm.
be a quick one. It's probably going to go 5, maybe 6 games due to Joel Embiid having this injury and James Harden being James Harden, his normal playoff self. So I truly don't see this series going to 7. I don't see the first 2 games necessarily being close
Mm-hmm.
without Joel Embiid there. So yeah, I think it's an unfortunate situation for the Sixers because if they had a fully healthy Embiid for the first 2 games, this I might have even picked them to win the series,
Mm-hmm.
but having him out for 2 games, that's detrimental in a 7-game series.
Yeah, it's an orbital fracture, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the first thing I want to say is I believe you're right that it probably will be a 5-game series. And I have to say that watching James Harden play basketball compared to what I used to see him do night in, night out, every day when he was in the Rockets uniform is frustrating and disappointing because he is so passive. It makes me mad.
Exactly. And you could tell that due to those mounting hamstring injuries, he just doesn't have his same explosion that he used to have.
And that's what I was about to say. Unless James Harden could somehow turn back the clock in this series and drop 40 a game with like 10 assists, then there's no way they're getting close to winning this series.
Hmm.
But on top of that, like you said, those hamstring injuries look like they've bothered him.
Yeah. And then on top of that, I don't think there's any way he could do it even by turning back the clock because, like I said, like we both know very well, playoff James Harden is not something that anybody should want on their team.
Hmm.
James Harden has routinely let us down in the playoffs here in Houston. And so even if he turned back the clock to his Rockets days somehow, he still isn't going to get this team through this series.
I have a question for you. If we win the chip in 2018, say Chris Paul doesn't actually get hurt and we go on and face the Cavs and we beat the Cavs,
Okay.
does that kind of make up for all of Harden's playoff woes in all the past years and the years after that?
I don't think it makes up for the past years, but it definitely it lessens the stain of his
Hmm.
playoff career
Hmm.
because we don't have that game 7 meltdown to talk about.
Hmm.
But also we don't know what he does against the Cavs because we could go into that final series. He plays horrible against the Cavs, but maybe just Chris Paul and the role players get us the win for the most part, except for maybe like 1 or 2 games where Harden goes off. So
Hmm.
it all depends on what Harden would have done in that Cavs series.
Right, right, right. Um, yeah, so I think that was an easy series to talk about. Do
Mhm.
you want to go ahead and move on to the next one, which would be Milwaukee and Boston?
Yep.
All right. I have to come out and say it that as of right now, because
Hmm.
of injuries
Hmm.
and how they're on a roll right now, I think Boston is the favorite to win this series and more than likely win the chip.
That's a fair assessment. I'm not gonna lie. When I saw that Chris Middleton wouldn't be back for this series and possibly won't even be back for the Eastern Conference Finals, should they make it, which
Hmm.
solidifies that there's zero chance he comes back for this series, I
Hmm.
was very worried.
Hmm.
But looking at the game that's currently taking place, which is game 1 of their matchup,
Hmm.
the Bucks are actually leading right now. So this could still be a very competitive series without Middleton.
Right.
So I do think, like you said, Boston is definitely the favorite in this series just because of the lack of injuries for them. Like they've been really fortunate to have gotten Rob Williams back and
Hmm.
not really lost anybody significant. So I probably picked them in 7, maybe 6 or 7 for Boston.
Yeah, so just looking at all the series, like in the Miami Philadelphia series, like we already talked about Embiid, and then for Miami, it's Kyle Lowry who's been injured here and there. Jimmy Butler even sat out a game.
Hmm.
Milwaukee, like you said, has Chris Middleton out. Phoenix and Dallas, you got Luka, who's maybe not 100% healthy. They don't have Tim Hardaway Jr. The Suns lost Devin Booker.
Hmm.
Golden State is Steph, still 100%.
Hmm.
And Memphis, I mean, Jaren Jackson, the way he fouls out, might as well be injured. Um, so it seems like every other team in the playoff has someone who's significantly hurt or injured or out, except Boston. Like you said, they got, Rob Williams back just in time. Like, yes, he missed a couple games, but they got him back like when they really needed him.
Exactly. He really was an important piece to them closing out that net series.
Hmm.
So to get him back, have him healthy for the rest of this playoffs run, hopefully, that's big for them. It will really help them in this series against the Bucks because his rim protection really could affect Giannis.
Mm-hmm.
So I think getting him back and then just the way Al Horford has been defending will be a major key to them winning this series.
Mm-hmm. So like I said, this game goes 7. Do you think? I'm sorry, this series more than likely I think will go 7.
Mm-hmm.
But do you think this might be the most interesting series of all the second round?
Yeah, I think, like I said, the Miami Philly series is pretty much a foregone conclusion with no Embiid for 2 games.
Mm-hmm.
Phoenix, Dallas, while it can be good, this is Luka's first time in the second round, while this is a Phoenix team that just made the finals last season. So I feel like that experience advantage, especially with Chris Paul, will really carry them because, Chris Paul doesn't usually fold too bad until he hits the conference finals.
uh, unless he just falls to the ground in
Yeah.
injury, but
But again, that was the conference finals.
yeah, it was the conference finals.
But then the last one we have Golden State and Memphis, and I think Golden State takes that one pretty clearly, even if the series is close. I think
Mm-hmm.
I think it'll more so be close in terms of team, like, oh, Golden State gets decisive win, Memphis gets a decisive win because maybe Golden State has one of their just awful games where they stack up the turnovers and Steph is playing horribly. So I
Mm-hmm.
think that's the way that series would be competitive. But I think this Milwaukee Boston series is the only one where it's really just going to be close to the wire games, whole series.
Mm-hmm. And do you think Drew Holiday actually can be consistent for a whole series? Do you think this is the series he actually does turn it around?
Well, he's already 2 for 7 in this game. So I'm going to have to give you a decisive no there. I don't think Drew Holiday turns it around here, and I honestly don't think he ever will in his career. He resolves himself to taking a lot of really bad shots that are beyond his skill level.
Mm-hmm.
And until he learns to stop doing that, he will never be consistent.
Did you see the video of him receiving the Teammate of the Year award?
No, what happened?
So he received the award and like he was accepting in front of all his teammates in practice, and he was like jokingly saying, "I hate all of y'all." I think he actually means it because he seems to throw a little bit here and there.
He's like, you know what? I don't want another championship with you. I don't want to give y'all another ring, man. Get out of here. Giannis, man, who cares about your legacy, bro? I'm not helping you become a GOAT.
He does. Giannis cares about his legacy. Like, look at him; he's already saving the day. But yeah, that's all I really have to add for this series. Was there anything else you wanted to talk about before we move on to Phoenix, Dallas?
No, I think it's pretty clear cut here.
Okay. So I have to ask you the first question for this series, Phoenix, Dallas.
Mm-hmm.
How much does Devin Booker's injury close the gap for the Mavericks?
Considering that Luka is also not at 100%, I think it doesn't necessarily close the gap. I think it kind of evens out the gap there. Luka's not 100% himself. Book's not 100% himself. So it just PEMDAS cancels out there.
Yeah. Wow, we're actually using high school math in real situations. That might be the first time I've had to use that since high school. But yeah, like you said, like Devin Booker's back, but how much of him is actually, healthy? And like you said, Luka's back too, but on the same note, how much is he actually healthy? I think this series can go 6. More than likely, I see it going 5, but I think there also is a good chance that it does go 6 because just looking at what we saw versus Utah, yes, Utah is nowhere near the team that Phoenix is, but still, the Mavericks were still very competitive, very how could I put this? all their players that they played for the most part were serviceable. Like Maxi Kleba actually came in and did something good. Like he shot really well. Davis Bertans, who couldn't hit a shot for his life in the regular seasons, actually came in and played well for the most part. There's these role guys who haven't played well, who are actually kind of, I want to say catching fire, but they're becoming more consistent at the time they need them to be.
Yeah, I think the thing that makes me disagree with that is the fact that Utah legitimately has one of the worst perimeter defenses in the playoffs. None of their guards can seem to actually keep anyone in front of them, nor do they seem to consistently pay attention to what's happening off the ball.
Mm-hmm.
And with that being an issue, Rudy Gobert is trying to do too much, and it breaks down their rim protection, and it just ultimately ruins their team defense, which is the problem that made it so easy for the Mavs to exploit them.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see Phoenix having that issue.
Well, the problem for me, I don't think the issue for Phoenix will be their defense. I think if anything, it's going to be their offense, because I don't know if this is the correct stat. I know this was something like it, and I don't know if these are correct players. I know two of them for sure. It was Jay Crowder and Cameron Payne. I think it was Cam Johnson. Throughout like 4 of their first games, they were shooting 4 for 40 from 3. I think it was something like that. You cannot have Jay Crowder, Cameron Payne, and hitting Cam Johnson 4 for 40.
Yeah, 4 for 40. Yeah, that's rough is not even the word for that. That's absolutely unacceptable in the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, that's absolutely unacceptable in the regular season. In the playoffs, that you cannot repeat that. That is grounds for getting kicked out of the rotation.
Mm-hmm. And then Cameron Payne didn't look that great as well. Like, we saw him be a really good backup in the regular season, but once the playoffs hit, he really turned back. I don't want to say back to what he once was, but he just didn't look good. Like, you look at his stat line, I don't think he scored over 10 points, maybe like once in the whole series.
Jeez.
Yes, I know that he's not really looked to really go off like that, but still, you would like to see your backup point guard score more than 8 points, 6 points, 2 points or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, you cannot have Jay Crowder shooting 0 for 6 or 0 for 7 from 3-point land in the playoffs, because when I think we've looked at most of these Phoenix games, a lot of the times that they win, guys like Jay Crowder contributing, guys like Cam Johnson, who's known for his 3-point shooting, is knocking it down at a really good rate. Guys like that. Yes, Devin Booker, Chris Paul, and Ayton can really carry the load for the most part, but they need those guys around them too.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's all I really have for that series. I mean, I can't really speak on the Mavs too much because I can't really tell, like I said, how they're going to do with Luka coming back for the most part. I would hope healthy, because I want this series to be interesting.
Something else about Dallas. I don't see Jalen Brunson going off the same way he did against Utah.
That's exactly what I was about to say. I don't know how Jalen Brunson is going to hold up with taking less shots, because Luke is back and versus a new team. So Dinwiddie has to play better too. But yeah, you want to go ahead and move on to the last series, which is Golden State and Memphis?
Yes, sir. Let's close this one out, because this one not that long to talk about.
All right, what's your prediction? 4, 5, 6, or 7?
I have Golden State and 5, just like the last series.
Okay. I'm going to go ahead and say Golden State in 6, just because I think there is a good chance that Ja Morant or Desmond Bane will have one of those games where they explode for like 30 or 40. But for the most part, I don't think there's really any counter to how well Jordan Poole's playing, maybe not how well Steph's playing. Well, actually, yes, because even coming off the bench, he's putting up ridiculous numbers. So how well Steph's playing. Clay, like we said, he's not really exactly to himself, but for the most part, he's doing really well. And then just Draymond. I mean, like you said, we've said this before, defensive player of the year, and really is one of the head playmakers on that team now.
Exactly. And in all honesty, I think the only way Golden State really loses a game is if, like I said, it's one of their just ridiculous games where they're stacking up the turnovers and unnecessary fouls. The refs are giving Draymond a hard time with the whistle. He fouls out or is in serious foul trouble, so he has to play less minutes. But really, barring any of those situations, I really don't see a way for Memphis to take more than one game. Because all it takes, as we saw last series, is one game for Golden State to get knocked in the mouth, and they kind of rattle, and then they come right back to it like, okay, all right, we should not have lost that game. We need to play better, and they play better the next game.
What, if any, game plan do you think Memphis could have to give their best shot to compete versus Golden State?
Even though I don't think they have the personnel to pull it off, they'd have to try and do something like what Boston does, which is force the non-stars to win the game for them. They have to keep the ball out of Steph's hands, keep the ball out of Clay's hands, and force guys like Jordan Poole, who, while he played very well, is not yet a star, Draymond, Otto Porter, Bielitsa, Gary Payton, all of those guys need to win the game for them. They need to attempt to win the game for them if Memphis wants to really turn the series in their favor.
And even if they were to execute that game plan for the most part, I don't even think it would work, because both me and you know firsthand how Steph Curry, no matter what you throw at him, for the most part, is just going to go off. Like, you can be smothering him on defense, have him in a straight jacket, like he'll still shoot it and bang right in your face 3 and just go off for 40 points.
Yeah, really, the only way Steph gets stopped in a game is by himself. He just has off game, doesn't know how to put the ball in the basket, and that's just, you live with those. But that's really the only way that happens. Like I said, I don't think Memphis has the personnel to pull off that defensive scheme. You need an elite. First of all, you need an elite perimeter defender, just as an individual, to kind of box and one him like Toronto did. And then on top of that, you need to have guys who are ready to commit to help on him as soon as possible and can recover back to their man.
And you said the best perimeter. I think the best perimeter defender they have is either Kyle Anderson or maybe like Dylan Brooks or something.
Yeah, Dylan Brooks is who I was going to say.
Yeah. I mean, I was just thinking Kyle Anderson for more length. But
he's
you probably want, he has that nickname for a reason.
Yeah, slow mo. He's getting cooked by Steph.
Yeah, like you said, you probably want him more in the interior. So you're probably gonna have to throw Dylan Brooks at him, and for the most part, that probably takes Dylan Brooks out of the offense because he's probably gonna be tired.
Yeah, chasing Steph around is no joke.
You have to commit for that and only that role for the whole game if that's what you're gonna do.
Exactly. This man Steph trains like a cross-country runner. There's no way that a regular NBA player is keeping up with chasing him around screens and just up and down the 3-point line for an entire game.
You gotta fight those screens with Draymond hitting you and punching you when you come around.
Exactly. Throwing an elbow in your ribs, maybe a little bit of a knee to the quad.
Yeah, poking you in the eye. But yeah, like you said, this series, it's pretty predictable to what's gonna happen. Yeah, so that's all I have to really add about that. Is there anything else that you wanted to add about this series or any of the other series or just anything else playoff related before we going to wrap this up?
I know, that's all I got. Everything seems pretty straightforward for the most part.
All right, well, then that's going to be the end of the episode. If you like the episode or the podcast in general, go ahead and like and subscribe. Leave a comment down below of your playoff predictions or any other thing related to that. Isaiah, any last comments?
You know, the usual. Don't forget to share the podcast with as many people as you can to help us out.
All right, we will catch y'all on the next episode.